Welcome to GCCars. My name is Eric and this is the 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee Summit Reserve. All new for 2022, this generation of Grand Cherokee wants to combine Jeep's off-road prowess with a sleek exterior and interior design to be the best midsize luxury SUV on the market. We've tested plenty of midsize luxury SUVs like the Genesis GV80, the Mercedes GLE, and the Volvo XC90 among others, but this Jeep Grand Cherokee has a serious chance to be the best of them all. In order to find out if it's actually the best, as always, we're going to take a look at the exterior first, then we're going to take a look at the interior, then we're going to drive it in the end. We're going to sum it all up in the final thoughts. And if you end up liking this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, because the more subscribers I have, the more cool cars and trucks I can show you every single week in your inbox. With that being said, let's start talking about the exterior of this Summit Reserve, colored in Baltic Gray. And I really like the colors. It's not like too bold, but not too boring. But what they've definitely done with this generation of Grand Cherokee is kind of like tone it down a little more. It's not quite as muscular as the last generation, but I kind of like it, especially the front from your angle still looks very brawny. You still have this very upright grille and then kind of like the white headlights. I like it. Now, if we move over here to the side, it gets a little, I'm just going to call it sleeker. I think it's kind of in spirit with the first generation Grand Cherokee. That wasn't like a super brawny SUV either. And then we go back where we have this kind of like this trend, right? We have these sleeker, wider taillights, but it's once again very well executed like in most SUVs these days. But of course we have the air suspension in this Grand Cherokee, and as you can see, this is how it looks all the way raised up quite a bit tall. Makes me even smaller at my 5'7", but very good for off-roading, very good for off-roading. Anyhow, with that being said, let's go to the inside and see if the interior is worthy of a luxury midsize SUV. Okay, let's talk Grand Cherokee interior, and this is the first Stellantis vehicle I've been in since we've had the Jeep Wrangler in 2020, so I've been a little bit out of the loop, and I must say I was quite surprised by how nice this Grand Cherokee is on the interior. The Jeep engineers and designers really have put out a very nice interior here. Materials are nicely varied and all of them are really good. The leathers are plush, feel good, look visually good. We have metal trim, we have some of the, if not the nicest wooden trim I have had in any car, Mercedes, Cadillac, whatever. This is the best. Often they're a little like flimsy feeling, you know, sometimes they're so thin you're not really sure if it's wood. This is just very nice, solid material. It looks fantastic, open pore, feels good. The touch points everywhere are just nice. The comfort levels are high. This is really excellent. Seating position and comfort levels are high. The seats are wide enough to accommodate a wide selection of body types. I'm more on the leaner side, right? But even I am comfortable in here. We have a massaging function that's actually a proper one, so you have like little spots essentially that push into you instead of just being lumbar pushing in and out. The seats are ventilated, they're heated. It is a very comfortable place to be in here. And then technology wise, this is also really good. First of all, we have our gauge cluster up front, which is digital, and it is highly customizable. There are different modes and you can pretty much select every element you want and change it up to your desires. Only I wish that any like notification wouldn't minimize my gauges, because every time there's like a modification, it'll minimize all your gauges, pop up a message in the middle, then the messages fade out, and then they go back big again. It's just a little unnecessary. They could have just overlaid that in my opinion. Otherwise though, works really well. The infotainment screen here, this is the 10-inch screen, which has Uconnect 5, first time I've been using this. It is very nice. Occasionally, admittedly, it can be a little laggy if you like open a menu for the first time since you've started the car, but once you're in it, once you've been kind of going through the pages, this works really well. It is very nice to use, it is very easy to use, and we have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. Now, if you keep moving down here, unfortunately there is a lot of piano black, which I wish they wouldn't have used as much, because even at less than 7,000 kilometers that this Grand Cherokee has, it is all scratchy already. And if you don't wipe it down every day, it's going to look greasy, it's going to have fingerprints all day, and it's just quite frankly disgusting. So please just replace this whenever you do a refresh with something that is a little nicer and not just cheap black plastic, please. Then we have our switches for like the drive modes. We have our air suspension control, so we can raise it and lower it. We have a 4-wheel drive low mode, because it's still a Grand Cherokee, right? Despite it being a unibody, it is still extremely capable off-road, which we will test if we maybe get a Trailhawk at some point, but this is more the luxury trim, right? So we don't necessarily need to off-road it. And then we have a few other features which are just nice. We have this giant sunroof, we have a digital rearview mirror, which is great for safety because your blind spots essentially are eliminated. And then pretty much my favorite feature is the night vision. They call it night vision, but it's essentially a thermal imaging camera that is sitting up front. And it is really like, if you ever spec a car and you have the option of speccing this, just like in this is as specced out as it gets, right? Do that. Trust me, it is so much safer, because if you're driving at night, every living thing that's like has warm blood, at least, so be it a human, be it a deer, be it anything else, you can see much earlier in here, because even if it's a couple 100 meters down the road, you'll see like this bright white spot, which means it's hot, illuminated in your gauge cluster. If you're driving in the like out in the countryside at night, your headlights can only see so much, but a thermal imaging camera doesn't need light. It literally sees everything. You can see a kilometer down to the side into the field and see everything that's on there. And even if it's foggy outside, no problem for you, because this sees right through that. It's a really amazing tech. I love it. It is fun to use, and it is really useful. You can even use it during the day, but on a hot summer day, humans tend to be colder than their environment, so it's not really useful now. But at night, honestly, it's so valuable. And unlike in the EQS, our passenger screen, we have a third screen here extra for the passenger, is actually useful and kind of like has a functionality. In the EQS, it was a bit more of a gimmick, but here, because it's polarized, so I literally cannot see from here what's going on in there. Passenger can see it. It's invisible for me. The good thing is that means they can watch videos on there. They can watch movies on there. They can Fire TV, whatever you want. So while the passenger can enjoy that with their separate audio linked up to their headphones, I can concentrate on driving. They can put navigation onto my screen. It is really, functionality-wise, good. If you have like a family and you go on long road trips often, this is something you probably want to have. Anyhow, this is really good. Let's move to the second row and see if it's just as good up there. Okay, now in the rear, of course, there is the Grand Cherokee L, which is a little longer and offers you a third row. This is just the regular 2-row version, and sitting behind myself, 5'7", of course not the tallest, but I have huge amounts of space, more so than I would have in some other competitors. And of course, it is just as comfy and nice up here as it is up front. We have still great leathers, we have wooden trim. This is very comfy, heated and ventilated seats on both sides, and connectivity, just like up in front, is plentiful. We have multiple USB-Cs, we have USB-As, we have a house head style outlet, we have storage up here. Interestingly, this is a pouch, this is netting. Don't know why it's different, but that's totally fine. And of course, as always, if you need a little more storage space and some cup holders, right here. This is very comfy, and I could certainly spend a lot of time back here. And also in the Summit Reserve trim, you get manual rear sunshades, just integrated. This is great. No, this is honestly, this is a really good interior. This is a really good interior, and I very much like it. But let's take a brief look at the trunk, and then we go driving. Howdy, fellas. So the back of the Jeep Grand Cherokee, not Jeep, is 37.7 cubic feet of space deep. So that's plenty of storage. And actually, Jeep has also thought about including us grocery bag hangers, which is super useful. And during my night POV test drive, when I always do my little braking test, it even helped the backpack with all my equipment in it. So these are sturdy, these are good. I always want to have them. If we want to have a little more space, unfortunately, we have to go around to put down the seats, 60-40 split, as in almost every single SUV in this world. But once we've done that, we get a total of 70.8 cubic feet, which is unfortunately a little less than the GV80. Anyhow, let's go driving. Okay, now out on the road here in the 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee, and as always, we start off with a launch. So let's put it into sport, traction control off, and see how quick this midsize SUV accelerates. So brake torquer 2400. There we go. There we go. Hello. Quite a bit of noise and decent power, although even the optional 5.7 liter HEMI V8 we have in here isn't anything I would categorize as sporty. We do have, like I said, a 5.7 liter HEMI V8 producing 357 horsepower, and that was wrong button, that was the right button, there we go, and 390 pound-feet of torque, which is definitely adequate and enough, but for example, even the GV80, which has no sporty aspirations at all, had 375 horsepower standard. So I wish we would have a little bit more power available, especially considering that this HEMI isn't very fuel efficient either. But with that being said, it still is very nice to drive. We have torque pretty much anywhere we need it, even low down. We don't have any torque dips or anything. We have the power that we need, and in combination with the 8-speed automatic we have here, it is a very comfy ride. It's a very comfy drive, and of course with all the off-road goodies you do have, you can even go off the road. Occasionally you will hear the engine, but it's a V8, so it doesn't sound bad. So I don't really mind it, if I'm honest. If I spec a HEMI, I want to hear it a little bit, right? It does deliver the power you need and nothing more, I would say. That's when the SRT comes around one day. That's when we can talk about sportiness. But we always do a little bit of a test in terms of like how the suspension reacts. So let's go to 50 kilometers an hour. It's always a little downhill here, but we'll see. And we're just cruising, and we're going to floor it. Quick downshift gives us the power, revs out. Very good in terms of transmission. I really like the transmission. You barely notice any shifts. It's good. So we can do a little bit of handling test. Not really that much. Not much feedback really. The steering is kind of dead. Sorry, I didn't give you any heads up there. So there's not really much feedback in the steering at all. You kind of steer in, the car comes with you, but then at some point it'll just start understeering, and really you don't feel it coming at all. Like, it drives well, it drives decently, but it's nothing I would say in any ways has any aspect of it being dynamic or really giving you much confidence beyond what you need. Just like the engine, it is good, but not like outstanding. If we want to talk about things that are really good in terms of driving this Grand Cherokee, we're going to talk about the ear suspension, which is very comfy. Like, minor vibrations sometimes will be transferred to you, but in combination with the seat, it's just very comfortable. All the major bumps, you barely feel them. Speed bumps, all that, it'll just eat it up. And it is very comfy to drive, this Grand Cherokee, especially if you just put in your songs, put in your ventilated or cooled seats with some massaging, and then you can just cruise. You can just cruise a very long time, and you will be extremely comfortable in here. And that's also because it is pretty quiet overall. I wouldn't say it's quite as quiet. That's not a good sentence. Not as quiet as the GV80, perhaps, but it is very close. NVH, except for the engine really, which I don't mind, is minimal. You don't have rattles. You don't have anything else you really hear. This is a very convenient SUV to be in. It's a very comfortable SUV, and just like you want to expect, and you expect for an almost $90,000 luxury SUV. Let's turn onto this road, and lastly, talk about tech, because tech is what we always want to talk about, right? And we've already talked about the interior tech and that being very well done. We do have, like I said, the night vision, which I really much like. But beyond that, we have like all the necessities. So we have like blind spot monitoring, we have automatic emergency braking, which is like the most important one we have. We have a good array of cameras, although no wheel cameras. I always like to have like cameras pointing at my four wheels, so when I'm in a tight parking spot, I know exactly where my wheels are and I don't curb them somewhere. But overall, I still have good overview of where I'm placing the car. And then of course we have adaptive cruise control, and we have a semi-autonomous lane assist, which works really well, does steer you in the lanes and does keep you centered in the lane. I have a highway PV test drive as always, where we go over that. This system does want you to be a little more hands-on than other systems. Like especially the Genesis, it sometimes lets you go minutes without keeping the hands on the steering wheel. Of course, it's semi-autonomous. You are required to have your hands on the steering wheel because it's not an autonomous system, just to clear that up. But in tests, technically, you would find that this does want you to put on the hands on the steering wheel very quickly compared to some other systems. Not really a critique, just something to note. And while we're talking of tech, of course, the sound system. So we have this McIntosh system, and it is pretty good. You do want to turn down the bass though a little bit, because in the default settings the bass is just a little overpowering, and especially in like songs where you want to have clarity, you definitely want to turn that down a little bit. But once you do that, very enjoyable to listen to the sound system. And once again, that's something that combines with low NVH and a low noise floor to give you a pleasant driving experience. But with that being said, I think it's time we send it back to the final thoughts and sum up if this Jeep Grand Cherokee can dethrone the Genesis GV80. Okay, final thoughts on the 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee Summit Reserve. And I really was surprised by how good this Jeep Grand Cherokee is. It is a very, very good mid-size luxury SUV. Especially the interior is fantastic. We have great tech. And while the driving might not be perfect with a thirsty engine that doesn't produce as much power, and the handling maybe not being quite there, but in turn you get the off-roading capabilities, and the towing capacity is up to 7,200 pounds as spec here. So there are a few trade-offs. But from the beginning I said we want to compare it to the other SUVs in the market, the other midsize SUVs we tested, and at the crown is the Genesis GV80, a fantastic SUV I've had so little criticism of because it was just amazing. Now, how do they compare? First of all, let's talk about price. This Jeep Grand Cherokee top spec is $2,000 cheaper at $86,665 Canadian. US dollar price is always on your screen right now. But $2,000 at that price really is nothing. It's really nothing at that point. So it's all down to substance. And I would say both of them are a great choice, and it really depends on what kind of person you are and what you're kind of looking for. If you want to have it a little bit more elegant, maybe a little bit more out there, the Genesis is your choice. It is fantastic. The interior and the exterior design is creative. It's a really good vehicle. But if you want to have a car that is a little more American and like a little more muscular, a little bit more brawny, the Jeep is, I think, the best midsize SUV on the market for that right now. First of all, you have the off-road capabilities that the GV80 does not offer, and of course you have some of the tech the GV80 also doesn't offer, specifically the night vision camera, which I think is a huge pro. Does it have flash power? Yes. Is it maybe not quite as refined, like 90% as refined? Yes. But it is really just such a close decision that whatever you pick, you can be happy with it. Personally, I think I would pick the Jeep, also because it's built, just neighbor country in the States, so it's like built locally, so that has a bonus to me. And I'm a bit more towards the adventure side, so the off-roading capabilities, that speaks to me as well. But overall, like I said, whatever you pick, you'll have a great SUV. Good job, Jeep, and I'm looking forward to having more of your products on this channel. Anyhow, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please make sure to subscribe. Like I said, the more subscribers I have, the more cars and trucks I can show you every single week on this channel. And if you really liked it, make sure to like it. And I hope you have a great day. I hope you liked it, and I hope I'll see you next one. Thank you, and goodbye.